Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host Andrew, and joining me tonight, back from his whirlwind trip all over the eastern half of Pennsylvania, Jason is back. How you doing, bud?
Hey, I'm doing well, Andrew. Good to be back. Good to see you. Loving the hat. Not so much the jersey, but that's another time. Uh, yeah, no, it feels good to be back. Been a crazy few weeks. Naturally, I'm back, and now we're out. We lost Joe to the injured list. Although Joe had a long weekend with work and whatnot. So Joe, rest up, buddy. We'll see you back again another day.
Joe's day to day right now. I don't think we're gonna have to stash him on the 15. I think he'll be able to make it back after a week.
Yeah, he's day to day like half of my fantasy pitchers.
Oh, and you're playing Joe in the long week this
Yeah,
week.
it's fantastic.
Oh.
I had I had 5 players, I think, start their games on Saturday, and I got 0 wins.
Jesus.
So, or maybe one win, but
that sucks.
it was terrible. Anyway, that's later.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little later. So, Jason, what are you drinking tonight?
I need to replenish my beer supply apparently because I had to search all over the fridge, and I found it's not even a beer; it's a cider. But it's by Cider Boys. It's the Grand Mimosa. It's an apple orange hard cider. So it's different, but it's good.
I like Cider Boys blends that they do.
Yeah,
they come up with some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's different, but it tastes good.
So, Jason, when I'm drinking tonight, I actually tried out, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago on the show, from New Trail Brewing. And this is one that I think you're absolutely going to love. It is called Berry Berry Lemonade.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not quite a sour. I would call it more of a tart, but it's really, really good. It's got strawberry, orange, lemon, and blueberry in it. And
nice.
Yeah.
There's one that Karen wants us to try and get. It's from the Ricker Bottle Works. I don't know who it's by, but it's located there currently. It's called Limoncello. It's basically like a lemon sour, but the can also has cellos all over it.
I'd get it just to keep the bottle.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so let's roll into this. We had the All-Star break last week. Me and Joe slogged through an almost 3-hour episode doing our live reactions to the home run derby. It was a lot of fun. It was honestly one of the better home run derbies I can remember over the last couple of years. I had a few issues with it, which we will get into. But first, our round by round breakdown for round one. You had the 1 seed Luis Robert Jr., the White Sox, taking down Adley Rutschman, the 8 seed, 28-27. And when Rutschman went back out and switch hit and flipped around to the other side,
that was amazing.
That was so awesome.
He went 7 for 8.
Yeah, and I can't remember the last time I've seen a switch hitter do that, but that's kind of brilliant because it shifts your fatigue around. Probably would have kept him fresher if he would have made it through. So
yeah.
And I'll be honest, I don't know his power numbers well enough to know which side he's got better power on. I would assume the left side, but the way he was swinging, it looked pretty well balanced to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It absolutely looked balanced. I also am thinking it's more. He has more power from the left side, but
probably. I do know that that's a neat trick we never would have seen Chipper Jones do because Chipper actually used 2 different bats. He actually used a heavier bat from the left-handed side than he did from the right-handed side. Mm-hmm. So he would have had to have all the bats ready to go. And I'm sure because that was back when you just wait until you get a pitch you like and then you hit it. He wouldn't have wasted his time with that.
Yeah.
The next matchup you had Adolis Garcia, the 4 seed, get upset by Randy Arozarena, the 5 seed. That was a 24-17 decision. And then the least surprising matchup of the first round, Mookie Betts got absolutely annihilated by Vlad Jr. 26-11. I think Mookie actually did not know that he had a timeout he could use part of the way through. Being very methodical, taking pitches, and you could tell he's not really a mainstream power guy who's used to something like this.
Yeah, like he'll hit the home runs, but he's not used to just hitting home runs.
Right, right. He's more of an all-around hitter who just happened to get on a hot streak and hit a bunch right
Right.
before the break, and they said, "Hey, come on in," because no Acuna, no Olson. Actually, there were, yeah, the NL was very underrepresented this year. I think a lot of NL guys declined this year.
Which to me is like, I get why players don't go into the Derby because they don't want to mess up swings or something like that. But come on, man, it's for the fans. Put on a show. Like, they're depriving the fans of seeing the best home run hitters, and maybe not of the game, but of at least the current season, from seeing these fantastic moonshots. So
yeah, I mean the two league leaders weren't in it because both Olsen and Ohtani declined. I know Acuna declined, saying he wanted to give other players a chance because he had already done it twice. I also know both Acuna and Olsen have played every game so far this season without a break. So I don't know if there might have been some encouragement on the part of Brian Snitker to say, take the night off since you're playing in the All-Star game too. I don't know. And to be honest with you, Jason, if I'm a player and I got voted into the All-Star game and then was offered the home run derby and I felt like I could only really give my best effort to one, I would put it into the game personally, not the home run derby.
But yeah, no, absolutely.
And then the biggest upset of the night, Julio Rodriguez in front of the home fans put the biggest smackdown we have ever seen put on the polar bear Pete Alonso, 41-21. That was the most home run hit in a single round since Vlad Jr. did it a couple years ago and hit 40. So holy crap.
And I think I was home right around that time. And that was just incredible to watch.
And they showed the stats after that round. He only missed on like 7% of the pitches he saw.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, like, I kind of wish that he held off on some of it because I think it came back to bite him later. But it was just, you can never count Pete Alonso out at the same time. So.
And he was the 7th seed, so Alonso had second swing, so he knew he had to put a significant number up because Alonso has done that several times in the home run derby, putting up big numbers. So
yeah, that was one of the drawbacks about being a lower seed. You don't know what you're going to need, so you need to put up what you can.
Yeah, and even still, 21 is still a respectable number that Alonso put. And me and Joe were talking about it last week, Jason. He looks hurt still. I think he does. Back.
I agree. And as a fantasy owner of his in our league, he has not been doing much of anything since he's been back. He's not. He's definitely not back to regular health yet.
Excuse me. He hasn't been regular Pete Alonso all year, I don't think. His average is way down. I mean, he's popping home runs, but his average is way down compared to what.
And even that, those are starting to be far and few between.
Yeah. Do you still feel silly for dropping Matt Olson for Pete Alonso, especially now that I saw Olson sitting there and picked him up in the middle of June?
Not really, because at the time I picked him up right before he got hurt, and he was doing fine. So I mean,
it was a gamble that just didn't pay.
Yeah, you have those.
Yeah. And then round 2, Luis Robert was knocked off by Randy Arozarena, 35-22. Vlad Jr. took down J-Rod, 21-20. And then in the finals, it was Vlad Jr. winning 25 over Arozarena's 23. So it was a pretty exciting home run derby. It ran really long.
It did.
One thing Joe and I pointed out multiple times, MLB is so worried about pace of play and the clock for this, the clock for that. They have them, they have the timeout, they use the timeout, and then it's another minute before they're back in the box after the timeout time is ended before they start swinging again. So what's the point of even doing the timeout?
The thing that I really enjoyed about that final round was just how close it got, and the fact that Arozarena only needed, 4 home runs to tie, and this was with his 30-second bonus time. Now he didn't get that extra 30 seconds, which absolutely hurt him.
Yeah.
But I know I sent this to you guys in the chat. But I think he went too fast. He didn't get he didn't get his rhythm down. He didn't get some timing in, and it felt like he had less time than he did.
Yeah.
So I really was thinking that we had the potential to have a swing off in the finals, but it just didn't happen. So pretty cool that Vlad and his dad are the only father-son duo to win a derby.
Yeah, that's a really, really cool piece of trivia that they'll be able to hold on to forever.
Yeah.
So, Jason, so we've seen two different formats for the home run derby. We've seen the 10 outs, and we've now seen the head-to-head bracket style that is timed.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the correct format, or do you think we should blend the two, where we have the time, but we're counting home runs and the top home run hitters move on? Because personally, I think Rutschman got absolutely hosed.
Yeah.
Considering that, and his side of the bracket was the Adolis Garcia Randy Arrizarona match that only had 24 home runs. So by my calculations, it would have been J-Rod.
I made a list. I actually looked through that, and he had the second most home runs, or third most home runs in the opening round. He had the third most home runs in the opening round behind Julio and Robert.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as the format, there's two things that I don't really like about the timed format. One is there's just home runs going everywhere, and you don't get to just watch the really good long moonshots. You don't get the player reactions that are watching the derby on the sidelines. You don't get that experience.
Yeah, that's true.
But I do understand why you go to the time, because you want more home runs. So you're basically sacrificing quality for quantity for the most part. But format-wise, it's not the right format. What they should do is all 8 players take their turns, timed. Top 4 home run hitters, home run count, move on to a semifinal. All 4 of them go again. Your top 2 do the 1v1 final, like the bracket style.
I'd be okay with that. I actually think that makes a lot more sense than how they have it right now, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, because you missed out on a potential historic run from Rutschman, all because he lost to his guy, even though he had the third most home runs in the first round.
Yeah.
To me, a home run derby is getting the people who are hitting the most home runs.
Nope, I completely agree with that. I really, especially once he turned around and just started mashing from the other. I'm like, come on, I want to see more of this. And then when he lost by 1, I was like, are you kidding me right now?
And he lost quickly too. Robert was just mashing home run after home run.
Yeah, he really was. That might be one of ignoring J-Rod's run later, that was just a textbook perfect way to handle that first round.
I mean, he potentially would have beaten J-Rod if he didn't walk it off, because he stopped after the 27th or after the 28th.
Right.
Like, and he didn't even get to his bonus time yet.
Yeah.
He still had a good minute 15 left in the round.
Yeah, he was on a ridiculously torrid pace, and it didn't burn him out really until the very end.
Yeah.
So, when you're the top seed, that's how you have to do it.
Yeah, and again, this format, and there's more proof that this format doesn't work, because you're robbing people of seeing more home runs if that's what your goal is.
I would hope it's not, because that's silly. But what do I know?
Yeah.
I just host a podcast about baseball. What do I really know?
Yeah.
And then the next night, we had the All-Star game.
Before we get to the game, I did see one thing to touch on.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw this, but somebody approached Ken Griffey Jr. saying, what would you think of doing some kind of like Legends home run derby after the Futures game?
Oh, yeah,
And
please.
and Griffey said, I would absolutely do it. So I don't know what's going to happen, but people are starting to approach the powers that be about having some kind of a Legends home run derby where you would have the likes of like Griffey, Pujols, like maybe like Ryan Howard in there, Chipper, like
Oh,
just get some
man.
of these older legends out to do a modified home run derby type of thing.
This needs to happen
Yeah,
next year.
yeah. So I'll be very excited to see what happens because that potentially would draw more than the actual home run derby itself.
Yes. Yes, depending on the match. Like this year, honestly, given the lack of I shouldn't say lack of star power because there was still star power in it, but considering you had Mookie Betts slotted in a 3 seed, yeah, it was not the most anticipated. Let's use that term, anticipated home run derby of the recent years.
Hell, I
Where the
mean,
Legends won this year.
yeah. I mean, and what if a couple of those legends may have potentially been able to beat Mookie in that? Like,
Yeah. Honestly, Hank Aaron from his grave probably could have beaten Mookie Betts last Monday night. Ronnie said it was entertaining, but not entertaining.
that's a really good,
true.
yeah, I agree with that.
All right, and then honestly, the All-Star game was honestly a little better in some ways than the Home Run Derby. Great game. There were some amazing defensive plays by both teams, timely pitching, and really nice home runs that came at very opportune times for both teams. In the first inning, first pitch from Garrett Cole to Acuna. Acuna smoked one to right that should have gone for at least a double, maybe a triple, because of how big that outfield is over there. And Adolis Garcia made a ridiculous jumping kind of falling backwards catch. I don't know. I honestly don't know how he held on to it. And he's catching that ball flying out of the shadows, too. Just an amazing catch. And then in the next at bat, Freddie smokes one to left because, of course, the two of them decided to push. And Randy Arozarena made an amazing catch as well over in left field. Like the NL very easily could have been up 1-0 after the first inning, doing major damage to Garrett Cole. And he got bailed out by some amazing outfield performance by the AL starting outfield. So the scoring started in the second. Yandy Diaz hit a solo shot off Mitch Keller of the Pirates. Luis Arias tied the game in the fourth with an RBI single, which scored JD Martinez. By the way, Arias went 2 for 2 and saw 2 pitches. Kind of reminds me of 2 years ago when Eddie Rosario hit for the cycle for the Braves and saw 4 or 6 pitches.
Yeah.
He's like, just give me a pitch. I'm going to hit it. Put it outside the zone. Doesn't matter. I'm still going to hit it. And then AL took the lead back in the sixth. Bo Bichette brought home Salvador Perez, the sac fly. And then in the eighth inning, Elias Diaz hits a 2-run shot off Felix Bautista, put the NL ahead for good. And he earned the MVP of the All-Star game. Not bad for a guy who got put on the roster because the Rockies needed a team representative.
Yeah.
And that also, I mean, the NL lost replay twice in that game. Arias tried to steal second, got thrown out. It was initially called safe and then overturned on replay. And then, which Diamondbacks outfielder was it?
Corbin Carroll?
I think it was Corbin Carroll. He had what looked like it should have been a home run, and it just missed the foul pole by like 2 feet.
Oh.
Yeah,
I wasn't home to watch that one, but it seemed like it was a really good game.
Yeah, it was a great game. This was the first All-Star game with multiple players caught stealing since 2008. The other caught stealing was back in the first inning when Murphy just threw a strike down that was caught in such a perfect position that the base runner went face first into the glove with the ball, trying to steal second. Don't run on Sean Murphy. People should know better by now. Dude's got a cannon. And then Jason, I got to give Rob Thompson a lot of credit.
Yes, sir.
Fifth inning when he brought Atlanta's entire infield, except for he pulled Murphy out in that inning, so they didn't have their catcher in, but all the regular infielders were out together for an inning. I thought that was really, really neat. Great move on Thompson's part to do that.
Yeah.
The only thing I wish that might have happened, I don't know how he would have done it because you shouldn't do this, but have Freddie out there with him for the warm-ups, and then before the first pitch of the inning, substitute Freddie for Olsen. But you don't want to bring a guy out there who didn't get a chance to warm up.
Yeah. No, I get that. I did see a few things here that I really, really liked about the All-Star game. More so from the Rob Thompson side of things, because, as we know, the two teams who were in the World Series the year prior, their managers are the managers of the All-Star teams. So Thompson, aside from what he did with the Atlanta infield, I really like that he brought in his own guy, Craig Kimbrell, who was added to the All-Star team a couple days prior. He came in and got the save. It was an eventful save, but he still got the save. To be fair, all the closers seemed to be struggling in that game,
except for Hader. Hader was blowing people down because that's what he does.
But like Bautista struggled. Then you had Kimbrell try to give it back. But a couple things here. It was the first National League win in the All-Star game since 2012.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And really, I think the Phillies manager should be the National League manager every single year because the record is absolutely insane. The National League, when the Phillies manager is not the manager, the National League is 7-28-1 for their record. When so
you're looking back over what the last 35-ish years?
Yeah, it's since like 1980. Okay. Or so with the Phillies manager at the helm of the All-Star team, they are 5-1. Dallas Green in 1981, Paul Owens in 1984, Jim Fregosi in 1994, Charlie Manuel in 2010, and then Rob Thompson in 2023. The only loss was Charlie Manuel in 2009.
That's not a surprise for some reason to me.
No, that was one where that was the one where Brad Lidge kept getting up, warming up, sitting back down, getting up and warming up, sitting back down, getting up and warming up.
And that's something that always drove me nuts about Charlie when he was a manager. That dude could not manage a bullpen to save his life. He did that a lot.
He wasn't terrible at that. I think that was just more of the All-Star game where he wanted to use Lidge in the right spot, and every time he would get up, something else would happen, so he would send him back down. But yeah, so that's the only loss. And each time, for the most part, the wins ended a decent sized streak from the American League. So this one was 11 years, 12, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
Well, there was no All-Star game in 2020.
Right. Yeah. So
it was only 10. This stopped it short of being a 10-year streak.
Yeah. But then there were other 6-game winning streaks that the Phillies managers broke. But anyway, National League, if you want to keep winning the All-Star game, let the current Phillies manager manage the National League team each year.
Yeah, that's gonna be a hard pass for me, man. Hard pass.
I can't imagine why.
I don't know. When you go into the All-Star break with the best record in the majors, that might have something to do with it. All right, so let's look at fantasy updates. So you and I played to a 12-12 draw. And I love the fact that Yahoo Fantasy just put up, in the comments when it showed the score. Just a ridiculous back and forth. I mean, I was up 21-2 at one point before your pitcher started pitching. Like, I obviously knew that wasn't going to hold.
Yeah.
But like that thing swung back and forth like a pendulum a lot of the week. I had a huge lead. You came back and I came back.
Yeah. After how most of that week went, I was not upset with ending up in a tie there.
No, I was okay with it too, to be honest with you. And then in the week's beatdown matchup, Joe put a beating on Ronnie 17-6. So looking at the standings, you did maintain your from the beginning of the year lead to now into the All-Star break. You're at 199, 156, and 37. Not too shabby, man.
I will take that.
And then I am 6 games behind you because obviously there was no ground gained or lost last week, and honestly, that's okay. Joe did pick up a couple games. He's now 16 out, and Ronnie's just waiting for playoffs and hoping he can get hot. He's 64 out at this point.
Yeah, this is the part of the show that Ron puts us on mute and watches wrestling for a little bit before unmuting and coming back. But yeah, I would love it if his team would show up against you a little bit this week. Because
started, I don't know about that.
Because that lead's not going to be there for long for me if what is currently happening continues to happen, which is me and Joe in a close one, and then
me blowing Ron into pieces,
like 12 to 15 games. Yeah.
Hey, he picked up 2. I'm down to a 19-6 lead.
Oh, he's still listening in.
Yeah, Ron would like it to be pointed out that we have a lot of close categories, which we do have a bunch that are pretty close right now. And this is a long week, Ron. I'm just going to say give it time until I start to run away with it.
Yeah, and Joe and I are in a really close one. I think he's up a little bit at the moment, but most of our categories are close. For Joe and I, it usually just comes down to the weekend. So
yeah, the weekend's usually where you live or die. Joe is at, if it would load, Joe is up 13-11. Yeah, you guys are really close now.
Yeah.
And Ron said that's how it is every week for me. The weekends are what kill. That's true. Ron usually does do pretty well during the week, and then the weekends things just fall off the rails for him. I don't know why that is. Who knows? Just bad luck sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so Jason, since you have not had the opportunity to throw out your first half thoughts, reflections, rants, whatever, just everybody else has, I wanted to give you a chance to take the floor. I know I've read a couple of your thoughts throughout the last couple weeks, but I wanted you to have a chance to get some pent-up rage off your chest if you need to. Take some cheap shots at certain other NL East opponents if you feel it's necessary. I don't know if Todd's listening tonight. But,
yeah, Todd and I had a discussion about the Mets at the bowling alley a few weeks ago, right before
Joe
right before he came on.
The score is close for now. He's coming for you.
I expect nothing less. Joe, go to bed. So thoughts overall. So for me, I'll do a little bit here. I'll do league thoughts, and then I'll do like Phillies. And so my thoughts overall for the league, I am absolutely loving the Baltimore Orioles right now. They are just rocking it. I mean, they swept the Marlins this past weekend. Now coming out of the break, they're only a game behind the Rays for the division. The young kids are playing well. The Orioles and the Reds are the two teams that are just the most surprising to me right now, and it's great for their fans. It's great for the league. I am a bit annoyed at just how bad the AL Central has been, just because none of those teams, like whoever wins the division, doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs, because you have the entire American League East that's above 500, and at least 1 to 2 of those teams will be sitting at home come the fall. And then from the National League side of things, really the only big surprise for me is just how bad the Mets have been. I mean, I don't know that we picked them to win I don't think any of us picked them to win the division.
Absolutely not.
But I don't think we had them all the way down in fourth. So what went right for them last year is going the opposite way this year. They're not getting the key hits. They're not getting the good pitching. You can tell that they absolutely miss Edwin Diaz.
Yeah.
Now, David Robertson, I will say, has done a good job filling in that role, but Diaz is also a leader for that team. So that's kind of a big surprise for me as far as that goes. I'm a little surprised at just how good the Braves have been. Like, I knew the Braves were going to be really good. I knew the Braves were probably going to win the division. Now, I know I didn't pick them, but that was just I had to try and stir the pot a little bit.
No, you?
And
No.
I know, right? But in reality, I think we knew that the Braves would probably win the division. I did not think that they would be as hot as they were for the whole first half.
Joe chiming in as always. A compliment for David Robertson. Wow.
Hey, if a player earns it, they earn it.
Jason, if he doesn't save Game 7 of the World Series for the Phillies, he will never earn it back for you as a Phillies fan. Be honest.
I mean, like, he can earn praise, but he can also earn the jeers.
Not to mention all the dead money he got paid out while being injured by the Phillies at a ridiculously high rate.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for bringing back that core memory. Speaking of stirring the pot, but with the Braves, I think it's one where, again, it's so annoying that the Phillies have been as hot as they were and lost ground. Like, it's, I mean, granted, they did pick up 3 or 2.5 this weekend. But yeah, the Braves are showing that they're still the top team in the National League. It's for them. It's going to be a matter of can they prove it in the postseason. Will a first round bye affect them the way that the first round buys affected the teams last year?
Which was Atlanta and the Dodgers.
Right. So
now, one point I want to make on that, I don't think it was the first round bye that hurt the Braves last year. I think they were spent catching the Mets. I think they spent everything they had in the regular season and ran out of gas. And not taking away from how hot the Phillies were. Yeah. I just think Atlanta literally had nothing left. Plus, for whatever reason last year, that team could not play day games to save their lives. And MLB, because it hates Atlanta with a passion, scheduled no games for primetime slots except for the one game that got delayed because of the rain, which was utterly ridiculous with the defending World Series champions that they get stuck in all-day game slots.
And for me, I agree that it also robbed the fans of both teams because that's a huge rivalry.
Yeah.
That you have a huge rivalry playing all-day games. Excuse me. Like, how do you not get at least 1 to 2 night games?
Yeah.
Especially because you're in the divisional series now. It's not like you have all these other games with the wild card that you need to show.
Exactly.
You know, if it was just a wild card series, I could understand that being an afternoon.
Okay.
It was a combination of both, honestly. It was a combination. It was a combination of the Braves starting to run out of steam and the Phillies just catching fire at the right time. I mean, they ran through the playoffs until the World Series. And even then, they were the only team to beat the Astros in any games. So, I mean, they got so hot. But I think it's going to be interesting for the second half to see what each of our teams do, especially at the trade deadline. I don't know that either team's going to do a whole lot. I think the Phillies will try and either get a first baseman or an outfielder. But
you've got to get Schwarber's ass to the DH
Absolutely.
You need to figure out a way to get him out of the
Absolutely.
field. He is the worst defensive outfielders in the majors by an extremely wide margin.
It's not even close.
It's awful. I mean, that series with Atlanta, that never should have ended the way it did. That line drive hit him in the glove, dropped, and then he made that diving attempt to try and make it look like that was why he missed it. No, dude, you straight up whiffed and badly. I mean, I get it. When Austin Riley hits a line drive, he hits it hard. You're a major league outfielder.
You're a major league player. You need to catch that.
Infielder that hit it and dropped. I would understand an infielder because the ball is a lot faster in the infield than the outfield.
Yeah, or even in like a blowout game where you might put a pitcher in there to shag the flies. You know, a la Vince Velasquez a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Like they need to get Schwarber out of the outfield.
They do.
If that means giving Bryce Harper an extra day off a week, which frankly wouldn't even be a bad thing anyway, considering he's coming back off of injury, just to get Schwarber's bat in the lineup, but get him off the field. They just need he's so bad.
I honestly will not be surprised if you see the Phils go after either or Paul Goldschmidt or Juan Soto. Both of those teams are going to be sellers.
Ronnie's chiming in here, hashtag bringing Goldschmidt.
Yeah, because Derek Hall is absolutely useless at first base.
Yes.
He has the glove of Rhys Hoskins without the bat of Rhys Hoskins.
Yes.
So Brandon Goldschmidt, you'll get a Gold Glove caliber first baseman who has power and hits for average, or Brandon and Juan Soto would let you put him in left field and bring Schwarber to the DH while you have Bryce Harper going to first base to see if that experiment works.
Yeah.
So I think that those are one or two moves that they're going to make. I kept going back and forth about their starting pitching. I don't know that they'll make a move. They might try to do something like back when they brought in like a Joe Blanton, just like an innings eater to get them something, or even like Noah Syndergaard last year. You know, he was a shell of himself, but he did what he could. He did the job when needed.
It cut out the need to run 2 bullpen games a week.
Yeah. And they haven't been doing that because Christopher Sanchez has been playing very well as a fifth starter. So that's why I don't know that they make a move, because Sanchez has been pitching so well. I think their biggest needs are going to be maybe like a middle reliever, just because of Alvarado Dominguez currently being hurt, and then either someone in first base or an outfielder. So, but I mean, maybe Johan Rojas will be able to slide over here because he's doing well with his debut. But overall thoughts on the first half for the Phillies. Overall, I don't really have any complaints because they tend to start slow. And then they caught fire the last month and a half, and they're playing the way that they should. I think the one thing that, aside from Schwarber's defense and whatnot, that the only thing that's kind of had me a little uneasy is Trey Turner. He's starting to pick it up a bit. His defense was really rough at the start of the year, but he has since really turned it around. So I think he's finally settling into the team and getting used to everybody. So Aaron Nola, while he's been eating the innings, he's overall been a disappointment. Especially in a contract year. I was not expecting this out of Nola in a contract year. And as much as Nola would probably like to turn it around and say, well, look at the offense that's been hitting behind me. I haven't been getting the support. Well, Aaron, here's the thing. When you're 8-6 with a 4.39 ERA, you don't get to bitch and moan about the offense when you're giving up nearly 4.5 runs a game. You got to do better than that. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's
and the fact of the matter is
it's the long balls.
$100 million contract, and based on the way he's pitching this year, he does not deserve it.
Yeah, and it's really the It's the amount of home runs that he gives up. He's either going to give up nothing and be in a 1-0 or 2-1 ball game, or he'll finally get the run support, get 5 or 6 runs, and cough it all away.
Yep.
So Wheeler, while he started out a little disappointing, has since picked it up. He's been pitching very well. I think a lot of it for him, and maybe this is the case for Nola too, is the World Series hangover. They did pitch a ton of innings, so I think that is a real thing. But
Ronnie, the Phillies aren't trading Nola. Nobody is going to take him. He does not have any trade value on an expiring contract. For considering you guys are trying to trade away to teams that are looking to build for the future, they're not going to want to take on a pitcher with an expiring contract when they're just spinning their tires in the mud, not going anywhere.
Unless you don't want to trade him to another contender. You also don't want to trade Nola to another contender, because while he's not the Nola that he should be right now, there is that chance that he's going to turn it around.
Right.
So I also think that the Phillies can't afford to lose a starter.
No.
So out of all the starters that are out there, Nola's going to be better than all of them right now. So for the most part,
Jordan Montgomery. Montgomery's numbers aren't great because he is not getting any offense from the Cardinals.
Yeah. But I'm talking like if you were to trade Nola, unless you get another good starter back, like you're not going to be improving the team.
Yeah.
The purpose of a buyer at the deadline is to improve their team. Getting rid of Nola right now does not improve the team.
The only way that would improve is if the Cardinals would be dumb enough to take Nola for Goldschmidt, and the Cardinals aren't going to do that.
Yeah, I would do that
trade. Be salivating over that, but
absolutely.
The Cardinals fan base would probably burn the damn stadium down over such a lopsided bad trade.
I feel like they're about ready to do that anyway with how their team's doing this year. It's a rare down year for that team. But overall first half for the Phillies started out incredibly slow, but got hot. They're 9 games over 500 now. They're a half game out of the wild card, 1 game back of the top wild card spot. So hard to be upset overall. Looking forward to a good second half here and get back into the postseason.
And Jason, I'm just looking at the game log for Nola in the last 5. The home runs are what are killing him. In the last 5 games, he has given up 7 home runs.
Yeah.
That's just not going to get it done.
No.
So, the one thing that really sucks for Atlanta, they lost last night, and it was primarily because Kobe Allard was pulled after an inning and 2/3 because of shoulder tightness. So Atlanta's pitching has been taking hits. Mm-hmm. That said, Fried has already made 2 rehab starts. They're expecting to be able to bring him back up by the end of the month. So that'll be huge to get Max Fried back. I mean, they can run a 4-man rotation with Max Fried, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, Mike Soroka for a little while if they have to, because Kyle Wright should be ready to come back mid to late August or early September. The Braves just need to keep marking time. They've got all the rookies that they keep cycling up between AAA and the majors that have honestly done pretty well overall in spot starts here and there where they're needed. And we know the Braves have a couple doubleheaders coming up in September. They've got one with Philadelphia, for instance. Mm-hmm. I'm sure one of those AAA guys will be selected as the 27th man for the game and be brought up to pitch one of those starts.
Right.
And going back to our preseason predictions, organizational depth is why I was not worried about Atlanta chasing down yet another title, because how many teams can lose 2 of their top 3 pitchers? Because I can Fried and Strider 1A, 1B right at 2. How many teams can lose 2 of their top 3 starting pitchers and lose 4 games in the month of June? it's insane.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous wealth. And to be honest with you, I don't see Atlanta being active hardly at all at the deadline.
I don't see it.
They might, two things they might do. They might pick up a backup infielder if they don't think Charlie Culberson's going to be able to do much, which, given that I believe he has played in a grand total of one game since they put him back on the roster again, they clearly don't have a lot of confidence in him.
Right.
And they might maybe look at another middle arm in the bullpen. Minter's going to be shut down for 15 days, but they've said he's not going to require rehab starts. As soon as the 15 days are up, he's going to be reactivated and good to go. It's just precautionary.
Yeah.
And they retroactivated it back as far as they could. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah, I don't see the Braves doing much. I mean, they're the top team in the National League. There's not much they can do to improve their current roster.
When most of your roster is signed for the next 3+ seasons, you kind of say, well, hey, I'm not going to do anything because I don't have to do anything because I don't have holes anywhere that need filled. So,
and they've stayed healthy for the most part, which is key.
Shocking. Well, pitching hasn't.
Well, no, but I'm talking your everyday players for the most part have stayed healthy.
Yeah, the worst injury was to Arcia when he had the broken hand after the hit by pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back just fine. He's been hitting shockingly well. I mean, honestly, we can talk about about historic seasons for Acuna so far. We could talk about how Murphy is playing at an MVP level and will be overshadowed by how good Acuna's season is. Let's not forget about Orlando Arcia, which going into spring training, Atlanta wasn't even sure if he was going to be the guy or if Marquise Grissom or Braden Shoemake were going to be able to come in and take that spot away. Well, the injury happens and they bring in Grissom, and Grissom's defensive liabilities quickly showed, and he was sent right back down. They brought back Adrianza, who made a couple starts before he got hurt, of course. And Arcia was your starting shortstop in the All-Star game and is continuing to hit at a very good clip, despite the fact that he hasn't been a regular starter in, I believe, 3 or 4 years with the Brewers was the last time he was a starter. So yeah, sometimes you just get lucky. And Alex Andopoulos lately has gotten luckier than most.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think, and that's the thing too, we're the best team in baseball. So who's going to just make a nice trade? It's going to be higher premiums for the Braves. So for that reason as well, unless there is a major injury that strikes in the next 2 weeks, I would be shocked to see the Braves do much of anything.
Yeah.
And again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That line
exactly.
All right, so Jason, you finally got to see a win in person at Citizens Bank Park. It's been a while.
The last time I saw a win at the ballpark was the June 9th game against the Dodgers with Kyle Schwarber hitting the walk-off home run. So it's been over a month. My record is now like 4-5 or something like that. My tickets are like 5-8 or something like that. It's bad. But I will say that whenever I go, something interesting happens. I think there's only 1 or 2 games for my tickets that were just like regular games. I mean, we had the Arise cycle, the Schwarber walk-off. Now, this wasn't a good thing, but the Grand Slam when I went with Matt, which was the second straight year that Matt and I went together and saw a Grand Slam happen. It just so happened that last year was Bryce Harper. And then...
What are the odds, man?
Right? And then this past and one of the losses was the Red Sox game where the fan fell into the bullpen.
Oh, that's right.
That was one that I had. And then we had game 2 of the doubleheader on Saturday, and we got to see rookie Johan Rojas get his first career hit, first career RBI. But yeah, so I got to see Taijuan Walker pitch, and he struggled early but settled in. He had trouble with walks. He walked 3 batters, and that was all within the first couple innings. His pinch count was really high, so he only went 5 innings, gave up 4 hits, 2 earned runs, and 3 walks. The runs came in like the first and second inning, and then he settled in. And another thing, saw Bryce Harper hit his first home run since mid or end of May.
Wow.
It was, it's only his 4th home run of the season. And it was an absolute blast. It was one where everybody knew it, especially in our section where you could see the distance and the angle that the ball's going.
Mm-hmm. Are your seats near where we sat last year?
They're literally a row behind.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember that because seeing Olsen smash in our game, left-handed hitters from that angle, it's perfect.
Yes, or even like shots to like any shot from center field over through to left. You can tell if it's going to have the distance. Now, left field, it's going to be a matter of is it fair or is it foul?
Right.
But to center field, you're like, that's gone. But he hit it into the Phillies bullpen, and Craig Kimbrell caught it barehanded. That's
always been kind of a nut, man.
That's brave. That's very brave of a pitcher to do. Pretty sure he got a talking to after that game. Like, we're down Alvarado and Dominguez, and you're closing games in our 14 for 14 right now. Don't do that again.
Don't be dumb.
Yeah, don't do that ever again. Kyle Schwarber had a 3-run go-ahead homer in the 5th inning, which was pretty sweet. I mentioned Johan Rojas, a rookie. He made his debut in Game 1, had a fantastic jumping catch at the wall and got a double play by throwing it back to first. And in that night game,
that was damn.
He got a cannon. It's really interesting. The Phillies didn't have a center fielder for so long. You know, we had a Dubal Herrera, and I think Scott Kingery tried center field, and now they have extra. They can actually have center fielders that they can move around. Brandon Marsh ended up playing left field. Rojas was at center. Schwarber got to focus on just hitting the ball as a DH in that first game. And then so Rojas had his first career base hit, which was a single to center. And then he had his first career RBI in the 6th inning on a bunt single. The kid is freaky fast. You'll appreciate this, Andrew. They're actually comparing him speed and defense wise to Andrew Jones.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, based on the cannon that I saw on that throw, that's a very, very good comparison. I can't argue that one.
He covers a lot of ground in the outfield too. If he can just get him developing the power, he'll be up there. And then San Diego, the whole thing with San Diego is if you can get to their bullpen with a reasonable amount of time left in the game, you have a chance. Mm-hmm. And San Diego just fell apart. With the bases loaded, they hit Edmundo Sosa to get a run in. And then the very next batter, Garrett Stubbs, they walked him on 5 pitches, I think, to walk in another run. So it ended up being a 9-4 win, a nice, easy, stress-free game finally to watch. I got to sit in different seats to look at, possible relocation for next year. And the Phillies took 3 out of 4 this weekend in the NLCS rematch. So yeah, it was a really good game to be at. So, and I didn't have to deal while it was hot. I didn't have to bake in the afternoon sun like Game 1.
Although you did miss out on your ring.
But fun fact,
Okay.
no, believe it or not, my cousin, one of my cousins lives in two of my cousins live in New York, but one lives in New York City, and they're big Yankees fans. But their son, who is 4 or 5, really likes baseball, so they brought him down to Philly to see the game in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So they had extra rings that they don't care for. So she was like, "Hey, we'll send you one."
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
Lucked out there for sure.
Only you, man. Only you. All right, so Jason, I am glad that you finally got to see a win. It has been quite a while for you. So, but what is it with you causing strange events every time you go into that ballpark?
I don't know. I mean, last year I went to a couple games because we took our niece to, or maybe that was the year prior. Well, last year I went to the game with Matt, and they had the grand slam by Harper to tie it up, and then a Bryson Stott walk off.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's always an eventful time for sure.
Hey, Jason, Ronnie wants to let you know if they send more than one, he'll take the extra.
Well, one of the other ones is going to one of my other cousins who's also a big Phillies fan. So sorry, Ron. I think you'll have to check eBay for that one. But the other thing is we never go to Philly in between a doubleheader.
I can just imagine, man.
We left at early because I was thinking, I don't know what traffic's going to be like getting there, just don't know what to expect. So we got to the sports complex about 30 seconds after the game one ended. And it was a close game, and it was a win. So the fans all stayed. It was a sellout of like 44,000 people.
Oh no.
I tell you what, if the book of Exodus happened in real life, it would have been that's the scene that I saw. Just people flooding out of the ballpark. Like the lights were turning green for cars to go, and nobody could go because it was just thousands of fans crossing the street. Like they didn't even have the parking lots open yet because they had to get all of the cars out
because
before they could let you in. So we spent a good half hour just circling the ballpark, turning around, going on, just because we had so much time to kill and there was nowhere else to go. But we eventually got into the live casino parking lot, which is only like a block behind the stadium. And we ended up going to the casino for a few minutes before the game. But I tell you what, I have never seen a sight that I did of just because, like, when you go into the ballpark, they have a few gates open and everybody files through. At the end of the game, every single gate is open and it's cool. Get out. And just, I could not believe just the amount of people that were just surrounding the car and everything. It was absolutely unreal.
That's just nuts, man. So is that worse than when there's more than one game going on in the complex at once and they release about the same time?
No, because that was definitely not as bad as multiple events getting out, because when the multiple events get out, everybody's trying to leave at the same time.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It makes sense to throw all your sports stuff in one area, but at the same time, it makes absolutely no sense to throw them in the same area if there's the possibility of overlap. And Philadelphia, man, they tried.
Yeah.
Although that said, with the plan to try and get the 76ers downtown, I think that's even worse of an idea.
That's terrible.
There's
absolutely
even less parking.
No, that's absolute garbage. You're not going to see people go that far into the city, into that type of area. It's a bad area that they're planning it in.
Yeah.
So if we want to go to a Sixers game, we're going to have to do it before they open up the new arena, because
that's
traffic, the public transit trying to get in and out there. It's going to be absolutely brutal.
Yeah. Ron said, I usually sit in the car for an hour before I even try to leave when it's like that. I don't blame you, man.
You need to find the right spot. If you go to the live casino area, you can get right out where the casino is. Turn left on the Packer Avenue, and then you just turn right at that next light, and you can get right onto 76 and head out. We got out of the parking lot within a couple minutes, and we were on 76 within like 10 minutes.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and even when we don't do that, we go in. I park right on an end, so that you turn right and you go right out, and you're right in the lane for 95. So you got to park in the right spot, Ron. You'll get out quicker.
All right. So, Jason, what do you have for Down on the Farm? I think you had something special planned this week.
Yeah. So the minor league teams have only recently started back up because they had the break as well. So I kind of wanted to highlight the Futures game this week for Down on the Farm. The National League, and for those that aren't aware, the Futures game is where minor leaguers that are highly rated prospects, they're looking for the players that are most likely going to be on major league teams in the future. So the National League team won this one 5-0. Brewers catching prospect Jefferson Cuero had an RBI single. Phillies outfielder Justin Crawford, who is the son of Carl Crawford, had a sacrifice fly in this game. Side note, Justin Crawford, I am absolutely pumped about him. Speaking of having prospects for the outfield, he's going to be one of them.
Is he as fast as his dad was?
Oh, he's insane. Absolutely insane.
Oh, that's a nice prospect to have.
His speed is probably around that of Johan Rojas, Andrew Jones.
So they probably have him graded at 70, 75.
Something like that.
Nice.
And then Marlins infielder Nassim Nunez, he ended up getting the MVP in this game. He had a bases clearing double in the 6th to get those 3 more runs in to make it 5-0. Another note here, Brewers pitcher Jacob, I'm going to butcher this name, Misarowski, struck out 3 in his inning. So he struck out the side. He averaged, not hit, but averaged 100.6 miles per hour. And 11.
How fast?
100.6 miles per hour. Average. He had 11 of the 12 fastest pitches in the entire game in his 1 inning of work. So that's a name to keep an eye on. And something else, they used the automatic ball strikes, the ABS system in this game. And there's two systems. There's one where you have the ump, but he's told what it is, and he relays what it is. And then there's a challenge-based system where the umpire makes the calls, but each team can challenge 3 pitches per game. And that was the system that they used. They used the challenge system. There were 4 total challenges in this game. Teams went 1 for 4. And talk about pace of play. Each challenge only took about 5 seconds. So it's really not much of a change. Because what they do, they just look at that mark, kind of like how, I don't know if you've seen when they replay like the pitches going into the zone, or they have like the shadow boxes for tennis when they do that.
I was about to say, is it like tennis's system basically?
It's like that, where they just show it, cool, it actually is a strike, it actually is a ball, and then you go move on. So
that's the way to do it. I like that.
So it's still a long way from being used in the majors, but it was kind of neat to see that it was tested out in the Futures game, and it seemed like it went pretty well.
I just pulled up Crawford's scouting grades. Yeah, his speed is graded at a 70, and remember the top score is an 80. So yeah, it checks out.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on from that, we're not going to do a full hot list this week. Joe put up his Moneyball and his adulting reliever, so we will take note of them. For Moneyball, Joe chose Chas McCormick of the Houston Astros, who is also formerly a player for Millersville University, one of our local schools. His line from this past 3-game weekend: 636, 733, 1.455 with a 2.188 OPS, not bad. 7 runs, 7 hits, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, and 3 walks. Yeah, it's really not bad. Damn.
Yeah.
And then the adulting reliever is Devin Williams from Milwaukee, which I know it had to pain Joe to pull that one up. 3 for 3 in save opportunities, 3 innings, no hits, no runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. So he pitched every day coming out of the break and was nearly perfect. So that is the
over half of his outs were strikeouts.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. All right, looking at the week coming up, we have the Braves. You got 3 at home against the Diamondbacks, Elder versus Davies. This starts tomorrow night, by the way. Morton versus Nelson, Strider versus Galen. So they're not gonna miss all the good pitchers, but I like that Strider versus Galen. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch on Thursday night. And then the weekend series, 3 on the road, the Brewers, Allard versus Peralta. This is depending on what they find with evaluating Allard's injury. To be completely honest with you, I think that's actually going to be Soroka. Even if Allard doesn't have to go in the IL, I think they're going to skip a start and have Soroka take it instead. But they'll be going up against Peralta. TBD versus Hauser, and then Elder versus Tehran. I'm actually kind of excited for that one because I want to see how old Julio's doing. I'm glad we don't have him now. He's not good enough to be one of the pitchers in the Brave staff now, but I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Julio Tehran because he pitched through. He was the ace for so many bad Braves teams, and he had great stuff in his prime. So I'm happy to see that he's still pitching at a major league level. Then the Cubbies. This should be a good week for the Cubs. I'm not trying to jinx anything, Joe, I swear. 3 versus the Nationals, Smiley versus Gore, Tyone versus Corbin, and Hendricks versus Williams. And then 4 versus the Dirty Redbirds, Stroman versus Matt Steele versus Flaherty, Smiley versus Mikolas, and Tyone versus Montgomery. So basically, Cubs-Cardinals is going to be a good time for opposing teams to get a chance to scout out some of these Cardinals starters and see who is worth trading for and what the price should be set at.
I'll say there won't be many, though.
Like I said, Montgomery, because not only is he realistically probably their best pitcher, but he's got multiple years of control left.
Yeah.
So it would make sense to listen to offers for him because they'll be able to drive that price up because of the extra control. I think at least 2 years, maybe 3 years left.
Mm-hmm.
And then your Phillies, 3 versus the Brewers, Nola versus Tehran, Sanchez versus Miley, Walker versus Burns. Thank you for taking on the top 2 of that rotation so we don't have to. And then 3 at the Guardians, Suarez versus Williams, Wheeler versus Beebe, and then Nola versus TBD on the last game of the weekend. And then for the Orioles, 3 versus the Dodgers, Rodriguez versus Sheehan, Wells versus Grove, Kremer versus Urias, 4 at the Rays, Gibson versus Glasnow, Bradish versus Eflin, Rodriguez versus McClanahan, Wells versus Bradley. So the Orioles have a tough week coming up.
Yeah, and that's going to be a huge series against the Rays.
Yeah,
with how close they are in the division.
The East right now.
Yeah.
And then for you guys, the Guardians should be a team that you guys should beat, but at the same time, I can also see the Phillies overlooking the Guardians, looking ahead and, slipping up, especially on the road. They shouldn't.
Yeah, because the thing is, after that, they come home and play the Orioles. So
I could see them looking ahead.
So they have that. They have the home series, go on the road, and then come right back home. So
at least it's only Cleveland.
Very true.
It could be a lot worse. I mean, you don't want to do it because these are major league players, but you could bust that trip if you had to.
Yeah, and I believe that there's an off day in between there too. I believe that Monday's a travel day. So
nice.
Yeah.
That 3 with the Brewers, that should be a really, really good series to see how you guys are doing because I know the Brewers are not leading the Central right now. but they're still one of the top teams in the. I know top teams. We use the term loosely because it is the NL Central, and yeah, I know the NL Central is not what it once was. It's definitely not a powerhouse. But that said, the Brewers managed. Oh no, I'm sorry, they are back on top again. They did get back ahead of Cincinnati after this weekend. It's weird to see. I know they're at a -8 run differential, but the Brewers, for years, and this is still true, are a pitching first team that can occasionally get a little bit of pop, especially now that they've got the younger Contreras brother from Atlanta in the offseason, which is big because Rowdy Tellez is now on the 15-day IL. I think they're expecting to lose him for at least a month. So this is the time the Phillies offense needs to step up and just hit the damn ball. They need, and here's the thing, I don't know that they're going to do a lot against the top starters just because Milwaukee's top starters have been having a good year. Get to that bullpen and do some damage because that is where I think the Brewers are more vulnerable is that bullpen. And, you know, that's one thing Philadelphia has shown that they can do over the last several years is be opportunistic once the bullpen comes out.
Yep. I mean, they're the ones that absolutely broke Hader last year.
It was fun.
They between Matt Vierling and Alec Boehm hitting tied and go ahead home runs in the 9th off of Hader. He was absolutely not the same pitcher the rest of the season after that. So,
well, and remember that was fairly early in the year last year. I think that started the year prior when Atlanta knocked the Brewers out in the NLDS when Freddie Freeman hit the walk-off against Hader. Because remember, Hader would occasionally give up home runs to righties, but he was absolutely locked down against lefties. And then once Freddie jacked him, it seemed like his confidence really started to waver against lefties.
Yeah, but the thing with that is you shouldn't be giving up home runs, especially like back-to-back home runs to Matt Vierling and Alec Boehm, especially last year. Yeah,
that's really fair.
But yeah, that is the one thing that the Phils have done well is they have been taking advantage of opportunities once they can get to the pen. So, and the matchups that they have are not terrible matchups. So it's a matter of the starters keeping them close and keeping them in the game, and then the offense just getting some good at bats out there.
You know, we talked about this earlier. Biggest key is probably going to be Aaron Nola pitching tight games and not letting it blow out of proportion, especially if the offense gets behind him.
Yep.
So, you know, we'll have to see what happens with that. Now, I almost don't know if it's more of an advantage to be playing at home or on the road because right now, this kind of weather, that ballpark is a launch pad. So in Philadelphia. So we'll have to see. All right. So, hey, a nice short episode after a marathon episode last week.
Yeah, there you go. Not even half the time.
If we were pushing half the time with just covering the All-Star break and the Home Run Derby, I would have questions. Let's be real. But all said, though, it is good to have you back, Jason.
Thanks. It was good to be back. Good episode, fun episode.
I'm really glad things are going well with Uptown String Band, but man, they are really dominating your time lately.
Yeah. Well, last week was the holiday season, so things are kind of cooling off for a little bit with the parade routes and things like that. But yeah, no, I love the Uptown family. It's really fun getting back into playing my saxophone more regularly. Great group of people, so incredibly welcoming. And coming up, we're actually going to already be starting to look at the music for New Year's Day because we'll have to start working on that. So we're going with a Twisted Candy theme this year.
Oh, I can't wait to see those costumes.
I know. I'm pumped. I can't go into too much detail, but it's going to be good.
I'm not gonna lie. I've always watched the Mummer Parade like here and there over the years, but I'm glad I have a reason to really more in depth watch it now because
Yeah.
knowing somebody in it.
Yeah. I do have to say that I never pictured myself one day say like, "Hey, I'm a mummer." So I can't say that was in the list of things that I thought I'd be saying today, but no, and here we are, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's really cool. We actually did a concert a couple weeks ago. That was another. Actually, that was the day before the 4th of July. That was why I wasn't here that night, but they did an arrangement of High Hopes, which is the Philadelphia Phillies version with Harry
Nice.
Callis. So we did that. Played some uh, Bruno Mars Uptown Funk with banjos and accordions. Like I tell you what, you have
That's
not
freaking
heard
wild.
an arrangement quite like that until you do. So I hope that they become more staples in the lineup.
That would be pretty legit. Let's be real here.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You can find audio recordings Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. See us live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and on Twitter. Merchandise is at redbubble.com. And you can follow us on the Facebook page, facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer. Our Twitter handles at DDAB_podcast. All three of us are on Twitter. I'm at Pyroloid314. Jason's at JRicker300. Joe is at JoltonJoe35. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast LLC and sponsored by the phenomenal Whiskey and Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. As you can see, Jason, Johnny cleaned me up earlier. That's why my beard is not scraggly and gnarly and all over the place. Thank God for that.
Wait to make an improvement there.
It could only go up from where it was. Let's be real. Guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next week.
Cheers, everybody.